So, Marius, at last I find you.
Tyrael, yes. Yes, now I recognize you. I should have known you'd travel in disguise. They're always watching.
I've been searching for you for a long time, Marius. I was rather beginning to think you didn't want to be found.
Oh, forgive me, Tyrael, please. It wasn't my fault.
Not your fault. Tell me, Marius, how was it not your fault?
The Wanderer. Yes, it was the Wanderer. My days at the Rogue Citadel seemed so long ago. I sought refuge from my memories in the company of other outcasts, high in the mountains past the Eastern Gate.
Do you want something?
I fought sleep for days at a time. For when I dreamt, the memories would return. Memories of the monastery and the evil which had claimed it. Dreams, memories. I couldn't tell the difference anymore. Had the evil from my dreams followed me at my heels? How had he found me here? How could this broken shell of a man, barely able to carry the weight of his own sword, be the burning terror which drove me to hide here? He seemed to have demons of his own that he struggled to contain. And he was losing. As I watched, I became convinced that I was truly mad. The terror, the destruction, the evil I witnessed, how else could I explain them? Were these the demons from my dream, or were they born within the Wanderer? Why did I follow him? I don't know. Why do things happen as they do in dreams? All I know is that when he beckoned, I had to follow him. And from that moment, we traveled together east. Always into the east.
So, Marius, at last I find you.
Tyrael, yes. Yes, now I recognize you. I should have known you'd travel in disguise. They're always watching.
I've been searching for you for a long time, Marius. I was rather beginning to think you didn't want to be found.
Oh, forgive me, Tyrael, please. It wasn't my fault.
Not your fault. Tell me, Marius, how was it not your fault?
The Wanderer. Yes, it was the Wanderer. My days at the Rogue Citadel seemed so long ago. I sought refuge from my memories in the company of other outcasts, high in the mountains past the Eastern Gate. Days at a time. For when I dreamt, the memories would return. Memories of the monastery and the evil which had claimed it. Dream memories. I couldn't tell the difference anymore. Evil from my dreams followed me at my heels. How had he found me here? How could this broken shell of a man, barely able to carry the weight of his own sword, be the burning terror which drove me to hide here? He seemed to have demons of his own. He struggled to contain. And he was losing. As I watched, I became convinced that I was truly mad. The terror, the destruction, the evil I witnessed. How else could I explain them? Were these the demons from my dream, or were they born within the wonder? Why did I follow him? I don't know. Why do things happen as they do in dreams? All I know is that when he beckoned, I had to follow him. And from that moment, we traveled together east. Always into the east.
Good stuff, huh? So, yeah, I wanted to show you both versions because they have this feature where you can actually watch what is labeled as Legacy. This is a feature they have in this because I heard what they said is that you're going to be able to actually play the original game underneath, and you can switch back and forth between the original Legacy version and the, the new version, Resurrected, on top of it. But you can be able to just kind of go back and forth. I'll show you this when we get into the actual game, but you can also do this with the cinematics as well. So I just think that's a really cool feature. I heard this was something they did similar with Halo, the Master Chief Collection, where you could kind of swap back and forth between the original looking version and the more updated version, which I think is a really cool feature. But hello everyone, my name is PapaNeeks, and welcome to my playthrough of Diablo 2 Resurrected. And I need to go ahead and address a couple things before we get underway here and actually start talking about the game itself and maybe even discussing it and showing it. But there's a couple things I want to address. First off, if you are wondering about the elephant in the room, of course, known as Blizzard and all that stuff going on, I made an entire separate video addressing that whole situation. It's separate in my vlogs playlist if you are wondering why I'm playing this with all that's going on. I talked about it in that video. If you're wanting to hear, an answer to that question, you can watch that for to hear me talk about it. Okay. The other thing is, I want to give full disclosure to those who may be tuning into this who perhaps are either longtime fans of this game in particular or have nostalgia for this game. I'm going to let you guys know right up front, right from the get-go. I am a longtime player of Diablo 3. I have played Diablo 3 many times. Diablo 3 was my introduction to the series. I love Diablo 3. I did not grow up playing this game like others did. I have no nostalgic ties whatsoever to Diablo 2. For the longest time, I put off playing this because when I looked into this game, there were things about this game that I personally don't really like in comparison to Diablo 3. In fact, there are some things that I consider inconveniences and a little annoyances when it comes to the game design of this, that in my opinion they improved upon or fixed in Diablo 3. And it's amazing to me that there's this screeching chorus on the internet about how they think Diablo 2 is better than Diablo 3, mainly because of the whole dark aspect, which a number of people said is not necessarily about the thematic stuff or the stuff that happens in the story and such. It's all about the presentation. I just want to, which I've, gosh, I'm trying to really figure out how to put these things. During my time testing this game, because as you can see over here, I have been testing this game out in preparation for this playthrough. You can see there. The dark thing has actually been affecting me in terms of my eyes have been hurting. I've had to keep changing the presentation and graphics and the brightness, turning up the brightness in this game, because this darkness thing that people keep talking about made this game better and such actually hurts my eyes while looking at it and playing it. Now, maybe that could be attributed to this remaster as opposed to the original game, but even the original game, I don't want to say that it hasn't aged well, because it's still, fine in terms of its presentation, because I'm not someone who really cares that much about presentation in terms of how it appears, in terms of whether or not it looks good or bad, because I grew up in the SNES era, and the N64 era, and the PlayStation 1 era. I'm not exactly someone who has grown to really care about how good the graphics are in a game, because, like I said, I grew up in an era where that was not really a thing we could ask for more of. You couldn't really complain about graphics when it came to the Super Nintendo era and the N64 era. If you guys grew up in those eras, you know what I'm talking about. So that's not really something that's ever concerned me. I've always been more interested in how it runs technically. Does it still run well? It's like the original Diablo, in my opinion, hasn't aged well. Not because it doesn't look good, it's because of how, at times, it's just hard to get them to actually run on more modern machines. Now, I know that they've actually tried to fix this with the good old games version, but still, what I was more interested in when I heard they were going to do this remaster of Diablo 2 was that they were going to get to actually run well on modern machines. One of the issues I kept running into was the resolution. Every time I tried to run Diablo 2, it would mess with my monitor's resolution settings and all that, and just... There was also other things, but I'll talk more about that when we get into the actual game play and such. But I'm just letting you guys know right now, if you're someone who is a big fan of Diablo 2, and if you hate Diablo 3, and if you're one of those who complains about that Diablo 3 isn't dark enough compared to Diablo 2, or that Diablo 2 is, really dark and that somehow makes it better and such, you probably don't want to keep watching. Just go ahead and stop the video and leave, or, because I'm going to be comparing this to Diablo 3, and a number of cases I'm going to be saying that Diablo 3 did it better. Now, not everything. There are some things that this game did better than Diablo 3. I'm going to go ahead and acknowledge that, because it's kind of my thing. I like to talk about both the positives and the negatives. But I'm going to be honest when it comes to my opinion on whether or not I think Diablo 3 did it better than this game did. And if that bothers you, hearing someone talk positively about Diablo 3 in comparison to Diablo 2, then you may just want to go ahead and stop watching and leave. Okay? Just letting you guys know. If you have a problem, because some people have an issue hearing that. The moment some of these people I've seen online and in other comments and videos and other chat rooms and forums and such, the moment someone stops talking positively about Diablo 3, they get all over them. They just absolutely, get all over their case. They start verbally attacking them and harassing them. It gets ugly. It's the same thing I've seen when people talk about go after people who talk positively about StarCraft 2 or more modern retail WoW in comparison to vanilla WoW. There just seems to be this thing where these people who are just diehard fans of these eras of games, how dare somebody talk positively about that more modern version of the game? You know, it's one thing if you prefer this game over the other, that's fine. It's when you decide to go after somebody who talks positively about something you don't like. That's when it becomes a big issue for someone like me. So, I'm just letting you guys know right up front, right from the get-go. If you don't want to hear someone talk positively about, Diablo 3 or point out things I think are issues or annoyances or inconveniences in this game, just stop watching, okay? All right. Now that we've gotten that out of the way. Gosh, there's a number of things. I was trying to figure out what order to talk about these things in. There's something I do want to praise about this version of the game, because the original game had some technical issues. I mentioned not necessarily how it ran, but when I also say technical issues, I'm talking about in terms of how it was designed back then when it came to its video design and its audio design, especially when it came to the options and what you could do when it came to trying to customize the game or change the settings. The original game had basically just one audio slider. This, like sound and such. That was it. That's all you had. And it had everything, like all the sound effects and the voices and everything. But now look at all these extra sliders. All these different extra sliders for sound effects and monsters and, combat and such, separate from voices and such. Oh, this is exactly what I wanted. And I know Total Biscuit, if he was still with us, would be proud. Because we all know how much he loved sliders. And having this many extra sliders to customize your experience and such, I think is an excellent job when it comes to these. I love that you can even be able to have some extra customization options for the legacy version of the game. And I'll show that off when we get into the actual game. But I just love that they added all these extra options for these things that just weren't in the original version of the game. I think this is an excellent addition here. So I just want to give praise to that. Because some people have an issue with remakes. This is the thing that I focus on remakes. Not whether or not you give a graphical upgrade to it, like with StarCraft, for example. But if you actually go, ahead and add extra, options and such for the players that they didn't have back then. Remember, this game came out back in 2000. This game came out over 20 years ago. So what we could do back then was limited to the technology we had at the time. And it was just a different era back then. So I just want to go ahead and point that out and give praise to that, okay? So, I'll talk more about this when we get into the actual game. But, let's take a moment to talk about the classes. So, this is both, by the way, again, look at this, toggle. You can look at how it originally looked back in the original Diablo 2, back then, and how it looks today for Resurrected. So, I am someone who likes all the classes they had in Diablo 3. I've heard people, as I said, I have no personal attachment to this game. This effectively is going to be my first time playing through the entire game of Diablo 2. I've never played through the entire game before. I messed around with the original version sometimes, but I never really got that much into it. And in testing and preparation for this playthrough, I did make it through the end of Act 1, and then I stopped in preparation for this. So, this is going to be me playing through. Now, it's not like a blind playthrough. I know, of course, what happens. I've seen a few different playthroughs and such in preparation for this. So, it's not like I don't know what's going to happen. But I just want to take a moment, of course, to relay information that I've heard and looked up in regards to the classes, because this was something I struggled with when it came to prepping for this playthrough, deciding what I was going to play. Now, I personally want to go ahead and try out each of these on my own time off camera, but choosing what to play for this was something I was struggling on. Plus, the thing is, the original version of Diablo 2, you could actually be able to go ahead and mod so that you could be able to actually make the experience easier. But as far as I know, you can't really do that with this version of the game. So, but we'll see if that ends up changing or it becomes different. So, anyways, Druid. I have heard plenty of people say that this is their least favorite class in this entire game. I've heard some people say that they either thought it was boring, or they thought it was bad, or they tried to like it, but they just couldn't get into it. And it's a shame because when I look at what it has on paper, I think I would probably enjoy playing this. And it's mainly because of it's funny. There are things in here that very clearly, I remember I said this game came out in 2000. When they were prepping to make Warcraft 3, and especially later on when they came to World of Warcraft, I think they absolutely took inspiration from a lot of things in this game in particular. This game had a number of things that at the time were like a big deal in terms of this was something that it introduced that had not really been done before. And I'll talk more about that when we get into the actual game and I show it. But in fact, I can go ahead and let's go ahead and hop into my actual druid here, so I can actually, that I made here, just so I can actually show what I'm talking about. So, this right here, the talent system. This is something that back then was like it wasn't brand new, like it wasn't like no other game had done this before, but this was a game that really took it to the next level and just kind of like it set a standard for games going forward with this system here. And I just want to comment on a couple of these. This was the thing that made me go, oh, maybe Druid could be fun. Shape-shifting. Because you can become a werewolf and a werebear. Or I guess either one, but to me, just running around as either a werewolf or a werebear just sounds like a lot of fun on paper. And then there's the summoning tree, which is like, hey, you can summon animal companions and such. You can summon a raven, you can summon a direwolf, you can summon a grizzly, you can have these vines that help you. And then there's this tree, which made me chuckle, because this is the elemental tree, and this straight up sounds like a shaman in WoW to me. Like, there's Firestorm, Molten Boulder, Arctic Blast, fissures, volcanoes, hurricanes. To me, this just screams shaman in WoW. And I find myself thinking, did they just mess with this with the druid in Diablo 2 and decided, let's go ahead and take this tree and make a shaman for World of Warcraft? It wouldn't surprise me at all, because druids in WoW can't really do, well, they can do like Cyclone, but you guys know what I mean. Like, this is stuff like the volcano and Armageddon and such. This is the kind of stuff that you'd expect from a shaman, not a druid. So I just want to comment on that. Now, that was part of the expansion Lord of Destruction that was added. It's and again, that whole, playing as a werewolf, werebear with animal companions, that's something I hope is going to be fun when I try it out myself. It's what I definitely wanted to do. I've also heard that some people tried a hurricane build and such. Again, I've heard people say it's their least favorite class in the game, which is a shame. This is the other class they added in the expansion, the Assassin. Now, from what I've seen in the talent tree, there's a number of things there that look like they kind of took bits and pieces of this class when they were making both the Demon Hunter and the Monk for Diablo 3. Like, the martial arts tree looks like a dual-wielding monk, and then there's the Shadow and Discipline tree, which looks like stuff for the Demon Hunter. I've heard that probably one of the more fun builds for an assassin, though, is the Trap tree, because you can be able to just toss out tons of traps, and they take care of a bunch of enemies. And I've heard it can actually be fun. I don't know if it's a build I'm actually going to try myself, but it's something I've heard. The Amazon. I've heard that a number of people really like this one. There's a full-on passive tree where you just give yourself passives. There's a full tree to go ahead and buff into javelins and spears if you want to go that, which makes sense because there's a few of the classes here they made canon in both Diablo 3 as well as Heroes of the Storm. The Amazon, they made canon Heroes of the Storm by naming her Cassia, and using the the fend, stuff like that, or hurling your javelin as a lightning bolt. Yeah, that was in this game, and they basically made that for Cassia in Heroes of the Storm. One of the things that appeals to me is going with a full-on passive spear build with getting the Valkyrie as well, which I've heard can be pretty fun. I've heard Bomazon can be good or fun, but the thing is, I'm not really... I don't really like the idea of having a bunch of arrows and ammo in your inventory, because inventory management in this game seems kind of a little annoying compared to Diablo 3, where I have to carry around a number of scrolls and potions as opposed to having room there for loot. But that's just something I think is kind of an inconvenience, and it's probably even worse with the Bomazon, because you also have to carry around a bunch of ammo, which means less room to actually pick up stuff out in the field. So I'm not interested in playing a Bomazon with that being the case. It's one of the reasons why I wouldn't have enjoyed playing a hunter back in Vanilla WoW, because of the having to carry around a bunch of ammo in my bags as opposed to other stuff. But anyways, the Barbarian, which of course made its way back to Diablo 3. It's interesting. I've heard and seen a couple of things about the Barbarian, and in my testing, it actually seems a little fun. What's funny is that a couple of the trees I don't really know if I would want to do. I've heard some of them are pretty viable builds for the Barbarian, and Barbarian I've heard is actually pretty strong until you get to higher difficulties and other things start to actually make where he's not as effective, such as if you run into enemies in higher difficulties that have things like physical immune, which can be a thing, or have lots of armor, which make his damage far less. But he has a tree dedicated to buffing how strong he is with certain weapons, which sounds interesting, but considering how often you're probably going to be swapping weapons in this game with, when you find them, it's like, I put a bunch of points into mastering axes. Oh, but now I have this sword that's far better than any axe I've got. Well, now, so much for the points I put into that. It just seems like it'd be kind of, wasteful to put points into mastering a certain type of weapon, and then you get a weapon that you're not mastered in that's better than what you have. You know what I mean? There's an entire tree also dedicated to his howls and cries, war cries, which I'm not really sure if I actually want to do, because I was looking at some of them, and they didn't really seem all that effective, at least when it comes to solo play. Maybe with group play, because this game does encourage really nice, fun, good co-op play. You can actually have up to a group of 8 people in this game, which is not the case in Diablo 3. You can only have 4. I've heard what was really fun, though, back in the day, because this was 2000 in the late 90s, of course, is that you didn't have to play together on Battle.net. Back in the day, you could actually play together through the LAN. Like, you could actually have, like, full-on, quote-unquote, couch co-op, even though you can actually still do that today with Diablo 3 on consoles, with the old split-screen co-op. And this is something I know I'm very familiar with, because I had a friend back in the day who had GoldenEye for the N64. And I went to his house on a couple of occasions, and I remember we spent a lot of time just playing the split-screen multiplayer for GoldenEye. So I'm very familiar with the whole couch co-op experience. And back then, you could actually hook up on the LAN, the LAN, for those of you who may not know what that is. For you youngsters who don't know what that is, but we older people know what that is. Sorry, my age is showing, I guess. But you could actually be able to hook that up and just play Diablo 2 with somebody on the LAN who's like 5 feet next to you, which is pretty fun. And the fact that you could actually have it up to 8, a group of 8, that just sounds like a real blast. I've heard co-op can be really, really fun in this game. So some of those, and that kind of goes hand in hand with what I'm talking about when it comes to some of these classes, that there's some trees that can work for solo play, but then there's some trees that I think are actually supposed to be more effective when it comes to actually group play. And I'm guessing the War Cries tree is probably that for the Barbarian, because other than that, there's one tree, which is the combat skills and mastery that he has, where it's like, all right, he's going to be able to bash, he's going to be able to, go into frenzy and be able to whirlwind and be able to attack with a weapon in each hand. And then, of course, he has, the leap. It's funny. I know somebody who used to main a warrior in WoW, and he used to play this, and he's played this game far more than I has. And he said that every time he would refer to the heroic leap that the warrior has in World of Warcraft, he would refer to it as "hup," because of the barbarian in this game, because every time you leap as a barbarian in this game, he goes hop, hop, hop. So I've also heard that's a great way to get around the map. So it's something I'm probably gonna be messing with on my own. The paladin, I've looked at the stuff and I'm convinced they looked at the paladin in this game and they went, that'd be really good for the paladin in World of Warcraft when we start working on making that for WoW. Because there's a number of things here that are clearly brought into the paladin in World of Warcraft, like Holy Shock, for example, or Holy Fire, or Blessed Hammer. After all, I've heard that one of the more well-known builds for the paladin is the Hammerdin. Which a number of things here they definitely also carried over when they were making the Crusader for Diablo 3. Because you can still do a Hammerdin as a Crusader. He also has, it's interesting, he's also one of those classes that seems to be good for late or endgame content as well as with groups. Because he has a number of auras that seem to emphasize buffing not just himself but his group. So it definitely seems like if you're wanting to do some more group play and endgame content, that a paladin is actually a pretty nice choice there in that regard. So then that leaves just two other classes that I was deliberating on. Sorceress. I've heard some say that they consider the Sorceress the most fun class in the game, and I can understand why. She has a tree for fire, lightning, and ice, which all the different abilities she has look a lot of fun. I've seen that some of the abilities can be really great. Of course, they carried over for the wizard in Diablo 3, and I'm pretty sure they want to also have some of that stuff for the mage in World of Warcraft as well. I should also note a couple of other things, which is that I mentioned how some of these characters are canon, have canon information. The Paladin, I mentioned he's actually part of the Templar Order, which, with the Church of Zakarum. So, yeah, just kind of wanted to remind everyone of that. Now, the Sorceress, she actually is established as canon in Diablo 3. We actually get to encounter her in Diablo 3, but only if you play as a wizard in Diablo 3 and you go to Act 5, and you get to Pandemonium. Her name is Ascendra, and she actually is the teacher and friend of the wizard we play in Diablo 3, Lei Ming, which I thought was really cool. So I was kind of going back and forth on playing a canon character, and I thought about playing the Sorceress. Now, I did mess around with the Sorceress when this game was in beta, because a couple of other classes were just not available for testing. So I wanted to test out at least one of these classes to kind of decide what to play. And I was messing with the Sorceress, but yeah, as you can imagine, unless you have a group to help, you're going to be having a difficult time doing the solo with the Sorceress, unless you just outright are able to cheat or break her, or whatever. So, by the way, look at that lightning, and then look at how it looks here. Also, look at the fire. So I'm just in case you want to see how they look when I pick them. Yeah. So you get to see the little animations for how they were back in the day. I'm not going to address the controversy here in regards to how the Amazon is different. I love the face paint on there, because the barbarian with that face paint there, he looks like Kratos. Just saying. So anyways, that just leaves us with the class we are going to be, that I've decided to play for this playthrough. The Necromancer. So, the Necromancer, the thing that appealed to me the most about this, and this is something I've always enjoyed, are these kind of classes that are able to just kind of have minions or an army to fight for them. And the Necromancer in this game is right up my alley. I've also enjoyed playing both the Witch Doctor and the Necromancer in Diablo 3. So I was testing out what I was going to play. I mentioned how I already got through Act 1. So I played a Summoner Necromancer, which is what we're going to be doing, in this playthrough. Because having an army of skeletons and a golem, just killing everything for me and fighting on my behalf is actually kind of cool and pretty fun. I made it through all of Act 1 without dying, which I was actually, considering that this is effectively my first time really playing this game, like actually, trying to play through this game. I was actually pretty proud of myself for that, because it's not like this game has extra things to actually make the experience easier for people trying it out for the first time. It's accessible, don't get me wrong, but unless you kind of know what to expect or know what you're doing, you're probably going to die, a number of times and struggle. Plus, there are some things about this that they do that I'm not too fond of when it comes to its game design that I consider a couple of inconveniences and annoyances. But I'll talk about that in a moment. What do you say we actually get into the game? So we are going to give him the canon name, which is Xul, X-U-L. They established this when they added him in Heroes of the Storm. So, and no, we are not making a hardcore character. But yeah. Oops. I just realized I made him in the online one. We're not doing online. No, we're not doing that. Oopsie. There we go.
Good day.
So, a couple things I want to show off. Here's the legacy feature. So yeah, you can be able to see how the game looked back in the day. Now, what is going on with his hair? It's probably a graphics thing I have to work on and fix. It's something I'll tweak around and kind of mess with. But anyways. So yeah, what I was, if you're wondering about that, it's because they sometimes will give you a weapon to give you a +1 in a certain category, so. But yeah, I was just building an army of skeletons and skeleton mages and a clay golem, and I was just blazing through this act, and it was so much fun. I love having that. There are some other things that I've heard about, like can be pretty good and are fun, such as being able to get certain curses, which can be able to really help make certain things stronger, like certain golems and minions, such. Like I've heard getting Iron Maiden can be also work very well when you're making an Iron Golem. I only have messed around with the Clay Golem. I haven't gotten to either the Blood Golem or the Iron Golem, or even the Fire Golem, though I've heard Fire Golem is not really that worth it or interesting. Some people don't really care about Fire Golem that much. What they really care about, though, is the Blood Golem and the Iron Golem. Though so we'll probably get to mess with that, hopefully, in this run. But there's a number of things I do want to address. You'll notice all these potions down here. So, in Diablo 3, you don't get to have to carry around multiple potions. You have one button, your Q button, which it has an infinite potion, but it has a cooldown. So, you're limited to how many potions. You can't exactly spam health potions if you need to, but at least you don't have to carry around potions, like, around, and have to, like, loot them and such. It's one of those kind of, this is where I'm going to start talking about some conveniences or inconveniences in comparison to Diablo 3. Sorry if that bothers you, but I warned you. There's also something else here. Scroll Up Town Portal. Now, this, I've heard was something that you could actually go ahead and take care of and fix, which of course is getting the tome and being able to actually carry around a number of scrolls. But again, that's taking up this space here because we have a Tetris inventory here. You see that? So you can only carry up to this much. Now, this is in Diablo 3, but it's definitely bigger, and you don't have to carry things like these which are mandatory, which are taking up this Tetris space and preventing you from being able to carry more loot. So they made it a button where you can just go ahead and use it anytime you want with no charges or anything. So, I prefer the way they do it in Diablo 3. Sorry if that bothers you. I'm saying that because, I hope it's obvious why I'm saying this, considering the amount of backlash and such. There's also something I also wanted to comment on. The quest log. Quest was something that, it wasn't brand new, but this was something that was definitely being worked on and focused on and improved on in preparation for games later on, because they took inspiration for quests for games like World of Warcraft from Warcraft 3, which took it from this game. This is they sort of had this in the first Diablo game, but not really. It was just kind of a random thing. Oh, hey, like the butcher, go kill him, and that was basically it. Whereas here, it's a little bit more improved upon and refined. So, yeah, just kudos to that. Again, this was like at a time where these things were kind of revolutionary. So, yeah. So, yeah, inconveniences that kind of annoy me so far about this is the smaller inventory, the mandatory carrying around potions and scrolls, and, you know, yeah. But anyways, I just wanted to go ahead and mention that. Be right up front with you guys about that. So, there's also something else I want to point out. This is cool that they were like, hey, you know, with the exclamation point to kind of like, hey, I have a quest for you. But also I want to point out that another one of the reasons I wanted to play the Necromancer is because he's voiced by Michael McConaughey. Which is funny because Warriv here is also voiced by Michael McConaughey. For those of you who may not remember who Michael McConaughey is, he's the man who voices Uther, Kel'Thuzad, and the Lich King. He's one of my favorite voice actors. He does a great job. And this is kind of funny because we have a character voiced by Michael McConaughey talking to another character voiced by Michael McConaughey, which is something that they didn't think they could do with Kel'Thuzad and Naxxramas. I'm still irritated by that. But hey, apparently it's fine here. So, one of the things I also love about the Diablo games is that they're very well... there's a lot of voice acting in it. And you're also going to hear a lot of very memorable and notable voice actors in this. Just kind of pointing that out. So anyways, before we talk to Warriv here and get started, I'm going to mess around with the settings. Because I'm not just noticing the hair on our player here, but I'm also noticing her hat there. So anyways, I'm going to tweak with the settings. And I hope you guys stick around. Good day. Stay tuned.